Someone you've been thinking about fell in love with you when they weren't planning to. It happened in an ordinary moment, when you laughed at something genuinely funny, when you got passionate about something you cared about, when you were just yourself. No performance, no pretending, and in that moment something shifted in them that they didn't see coming. But here's what's breaking your heart. That same authenticity that made them fall is exactly what terrified them into pulling away. Right now they're carrying this weight, knowing they felt something real, but not knowing how to hold it. If your spirit just responded to those words, this message is absolutely for you. If something in your chest tightened when I said that, if you felt that recognition deep in your spirit, beloved, you're not imagining what happened between you. I'm going to help you understand what really unfolded in that moment when they saw you, why it created such an unexpected response in them, and what their silence has actually been protecting. This isn't about wondering if they felt something. They did. And I'm going to show you exactly what's happening in their world right now because of it. By the end of our time together, you're going to understand why being yourself became the very thing that both drew them in and pushed them away. You're going to have clarity about what's happening in their heart right now, peace about why they went silent, and wisdom about what this season is actually creating in both of you. The confusion you've been feeling is about to make sense, and around minute 35, I'm going to share something about what your authenticity revealed to them that's going to reframe this entire experience. It's going to help you see that their silence wasn't rejection. It was something much more complex and honestly much more hopeful than you realized. You're going to feel so much lighter when you understand this. Welcome to everyone joining us today. Whether you're part of this community or this is your first time finding these messages. Before we dive deep, I want to say thank you from my heart to those who supported the last video with super thanks. Your generosity literally makes it possible for me to keep creating these lengthy, in-depth messages for everyone. If others feel moved to support this work through super thanks, I'm deeply grateful, but please, zero pressure. What matters most is that this message reaches your heart exactly when you need it. So let me start by telling you what's really happening in their world right now, because they're experiencing something they didn't anticipate. Right now, the person you've been thinking about is moving through their days, and you keep appearing in their thoughts in ways they're trying to ignore. It's not the big, obvious moments. It's the small ones that are getting to them. They're driving to work, and a song comes on that has nothing to do with you, but suddenly they're remembering the way you threw your head back when you laughed at something they said. They're lying in bed at 1:47 a.m., staring at their ceiling, and they're seeing that moment again, the one where you were talking about something you genuinely cared about, and your whole face lit up. Your eyes got brighter. Your hands moved as you talked. You weren't trying to impress them. You weren't performing. You were just alive, and something in them cracked open. They're making coffee in the morning, and their chest feels heavy in a way they can't explain to anyone. Because how do you tell someone, I saw them being completely themselves, and it terrified me? They're scrolling through their phone, not looking for you, but somehow still seeing you everywhere, in quotes that remind them of things you said. In places they pass that you mentioned once, in the absence of messages they know they should send but can't. Here's what's happening in those moments. They're replaying the exact instance when they fell, and they're trying to figure out how something so beautiful became so frightening. They're thinking things like, why did I pull away? How did I let someone that real slip through my hands? What is wrong with me that I couldn't just... And then they stop. Because they don't even know how to finish that sentence. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. When they saw you being completely yourself, it held up a mirror, not to who you are, to who they aren't. Your authenticity revealed their masks. Your freedom highlighted their fear. Your ability to just exist without apologizing for taking up space showed them how much of their life they spend shrinking, performing, pretending to be what they think people want. This isn't about you being too much. This is about them realizing, in that moment, that they've been too little themselves, too little honest, too little free. And that realization, it's terrifying. Because once you see that kind of authenticity in another person, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending that the shallow version of connection you've been accepting is enough. I've watched this pattern unfold dozens of times. When someone encounters another person's genuine self, not the curated version, not the best foot forward version, but the raw, unfiltered, this is who I am version, it does one of two things. Either it calls them into their own authenticity, or it sends them running because they're not ready to answer that call. And beloved, they ran. Not because you were too much, but because what you represented was too much for where they are right now. When someone goes silent after experiencing genuine connection, it usually means they're trying to protect something. Sometimes they're protecting their comfort. Sometimes they're protecting their fear. Sometimes they're protecting you from their own inability to meet you where you are. But what they don't realize is that the silence is doing something they didn't intend. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but how do I know they really felt what I felt? How do I know I'm not making this up? Let me tell you something. If this message found you today, if something in your spirit leapt when I described that moment of authenticity, that's not coincidence. You've probably been feeling this restlessness, this sense that something happened between you that was real but got left unfinished. You've been replaying moments, wondering if you imagined the shift in their energy. You've been questioning whether you were too much or said something wrong. That questioning, that's actually confirmation. Because if nothing real happened, you wouldn't still be feeling it. Your spirit recognizes truth. And the truth is, something shifted between you in that moment. They felt it, you felt it, and their silence hasn't erased it. It's just suspended it in this space where neither of you knows what to do with it. Here's why this is hitting them now, why they can't stop thinking about that moment. Time has given them perspective they didn't have in the moment. When they first saw you being yourself, their immediate response was fear, so they pulled back, created distance, maybe even convinced themselves it wasn't that deep. But time does something interesting. It filters out the fear and leaves the truth. Right now, enough time has passed that they're experiencing contrast. Every interaction they have with others is being measured, unconsciously at first, against that moment with you. Every conversation that feels surface level makes them remember how deep you went without even trying. Every person who seems to be performing makes them remember how effortless you were. Every connection that feels like work makes them remember how natural it felt to just be around you. Something had to shift in them first before they could really see what happened in that moment. They had to try to go back to normal. They had to attempt to continue with connections that don't require them to grow. They had to test whether they could just forget what they saw in you. And beloved, they can't. The forgetting isn't working, which is why you keep coming up in their thoughts, why they're restless, why they're starting to feel the weight of your absence in a way they didn't expect. This timing isn't random. Something is shifting in them because their soul is tired of running from what's real. And even though they're not ready to act on it yet, the shift has begun. Your authenticity planted something in them that's been growing in the dark, and it's starting to push through the surface. I know this might feel surreal, like, is this really about my situation? Stay with me. What I'm about to share next will help you understand why your spirit has been so unsettled lately. Why you felt this pull to pray for them or think about them even when you're trying to move on. We're just getting started. Because what I've described so far, that's only what's happening on the surface level. Wait until you see what's happening in the layers beneath what they're even aware of themselves. Now let me show you what's happening in the dimensions beneath their conscious awareness. Because there are shifts occurring that they can't even name yet. Here's what's becoming clear to them, even if they can't articulate it yet. You didn't need them. You wanted them, but you didn't need them. And that's a revelation, because most people they've encountered have needed something from them: validation, attention, fixing, saving. But you were already whole. You were already yourself. And that completeness, that lack of desperation, it was magnetic and terrifying in equal measure. They're starting to compare, and they don't even realize they're doing it. Someone laughs, and it sounds hollow compared to the way you laughed, that full-body, nothing-held-back sound. Someone tells them about their day, and it feels scripted compared to the way you just shared yourself without calculation. Someone tries to connect with them, and it feels like effort compared to how easy it was to just exist in the same space as you. Let me give you a hyper-specific scenario. They're at dinner with someone. Could be a date, could be a friend, and that person is telling a story. And mid-story, they realize they're not fully present because they're thinking, if this was them, they would have told this story differently. They would have found the absurd humor in it, or they would have made a connection I'm not seeing. That comparison, that's not casual. That's their heart showing them what real presence feels like. Or they're having a conversation where someone is clearly performing, trying to say the right thing, and they can physically feel the exhaustion of it. And they're thinking, they never did this. They just said what they thought. They just were. And there's this ache, not just missing you, but missing the permission you gave them to be real too. This is significant because when someone starts using you as the standard, when your way of being becomes the measure for everything else, that's not casual nostalgia. That's their soul recognizing what authentic connection actually feels like. They're not just missing you, they're missing who they got to be around you. They're missing the version of themselves that didn't have to try so hard. And that's a deeper loss than they anticipated. If you're still with me, your spirit knows something is shifting in their awareness. Let me show you what's happening emotionally, that they're not even able to name yet. The emotions they're experiencing aren't simple or clean. It's this complex mixture: regret that they didn't stay, fear that it's too late, longing for what felt easy, resistance to being vulnerable, and underneath it all, hope that maybe, somehow, that door isn't completely closed. Some days the regret is loudest. They're lying there at night, thinking about how they pulled away right when things were getting real, and they're angry at themselves. Other days the fear dominates. They're thinking, even if I wanted to reach back out, what would I even say? Too much time has passed. They've probably moved on. Here's the internal conflict they're navigating. Part of them wants to text you right now, wants to say, I've been thinking about that day when you... But another part is terrified. Terrified of being vulnerable. Terrified of admitting they were wrong to pull away. Terrified that if they come back, they'll have to actually show up as themselves. And they're not sure they know how to do that consistently. On a Tuesday afternoon, they'll pick up their phone, open your chat, type something, then delete it. They'll stare at your name for 30 seconds, feeling their heart race, then lock their phone and set it face down. This isn't game playing. This is genuine internal war. The part of them that experienced something real with you is fighting with the part that's terrified of what real requires. They're also feeling something they can't quite name. It's the discomfort of their own inauthenticity. Now that they've seen what being yourself looks like, they're hyper-aware of their own masks. They're in situations where they catch themselves performing and they feel this wave of disgust, frustration. It's like once you taste real food, you can't go back to enjoying the processed version. You've ruined them for surface-level existence. I know it's hard to watch someone you care about work through their own process at a pace that feels excruciatingly slow. But this internal struggle, it's actually important. Because if they come back before they've worked through this, before they've done their own work, it won't stick. This tension is creating something in them. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. The breakthrough, if it comes, will be real because it was earned through this struggle. Okay, pause. Because some of you need to hear this right now, and I'm going to say it clearly. You didn't lose them because you weren't enough. You didn't lose them because you were too much. They pulled away because your authenticity revealed their lack of it, and that mirror was too intense. There's a profound difference. Your wholeness didn't repel them. It exposed their fragmentation, and they didn't know what to do with that revelation. Real quick, if that just hit you directly in your chest, if you needed to hear that today, drop a heart emoji in the comments. No explanation needed. Just let me know you heard it. Because sometimes the simplest truths are the ones we need most. And seeing your hearts reminds me that we're all in this together, healing together, growing together, learning to recognize our worth together. Now here's where it gets really interesting and actually hopeful. Let me show you what's happening on a spiritual level. On a spiritual level, there's something deeper at work here than just emotions and timing. What happened between you wasn't just chemistry, it was a divine mirror moment. These are encounters that come into our lives to show us something we need to see. For you, this person came in to affirm that your authenticity is magnetic, that being yourself is not only enough but powerful. For them, you came in to reveal what they've been hiding from. These moments don't happen randomly. When someone encounters another person's genuine self and it cracks something open in them, that's a spiritual assignment. Not always for reconciliation, sometimes for revelation. Sometimes a person enters your life not to stay, but to show you what real connection feels like, so you never settle for less again. And sometimes you enter someone else's life not to be there forever, but to be their awakening. I think about the moments in life when we encounter someone who's operating at a level of freedom we haven't reached yet. It's uncomfortable. It challenges everything we've built our identity on. There's a passage that says, "Iron sharpens iron," and sometimes that sharpening feels like friction. Your authenticity created friction against their facades. That friction is purposeful. For some of you, I sense that this shift in their heart is directly connected to prayers you've been praying. You've been asking for clarity, for breakthrough, for something to change, and this is what that looks like in the beginning stages. It doesn't start with them showing up on your doorstep. It starts with internal disruption. It starts with them not being able to go back to sleep in the version of themselves they were before they met you. The restlessness you've been feeling. That's spiritual confirmation. Your spirit is picking up on the movement happening in the invisible realm before it manifests in the physical. Don't dismiss that sensing. That's not wishful thinking, that's spiritual awareness. So where is this heading? I can't promise you specifics, beloved, because that would be dishonest. But I can tell you what I've seen unfold when this pattern continues. Sometimes it leads to them doing their own work and coming back different, ready, transformed. Sometimes it leads to closure, a conversation where things finally make sense and both people can release with peace. And sometimes it leads to you growing so much through this process that by the time anything shifts, you're no longer the same person who was waiting. You've become someone who knows their worth and won't accept anything less than genuine. But in all three scenarios, there's a common thread. Growth happens. This situation is not wasted time. Whether they end up being part of your future or not, this experience is refining something in you. It's teaching you to recognize authentic connection. It's showing you that your real self is attractive, not despite its imperfections, but because of its honesty. It's strengthening your ability to stand in your truth, even when others pull away from it. Here's what I've noticed. When someone falls for you because of your authenticity and then pulls back in fear, one of two things eventually happens. Either they do the internal work to become someone who can handle that level of real, or they stay stuck and you outgrow the space where reunion would even make sense anymore. Either way, you win, because you're becoming someone who won't compromise their authenticity for comfort. Whether this leads to restoration or release, what's happening right now is important. They're learning something about themselves they needed to learn. You're learning something about your own worth that you needed to learn. None of this is wasted. The confusion you're feeling right now is part of the process. The waiting is doing something in you that you'll appreciate later, even if you can't see it yet. Stay with me, What I'm about to share next is the piece that ties everything together. This is where real clarity comes. I pour my heart into these messages because I genuinely care about your journey through these complex situations. If this is bringing you clarity, peace, or hope right now, and you feel moved to support what we're building here through super thanks, it truly means the world and helps me continue creating in-depth content like this. But honestly, what matters most is that you're getting what you need from this message. So whether you support or not, I'm just grateful you're here and that this is reaching you exactly when you need it. Now let me show you the one thing that changes how you see this entire situation. Here's what I promised at the beginning. This is the insight that reframes everything. What they're really responding to isn't your authenticity itself. It's what your authenticity demanded of them. See, when you showed up as your genuine self, you created an environment where pretense couldn't survive. You didn't ask them to be real. You didn't demand vulnerability. But your presence made fakeness impossible. And that's what scared them. Here's what I mean. Most people operate in relationships with a certain level of performance. We show our best self. We hide our mess. We present the version we think will be accepted. And we've gotten so used to this dance that we've forgotten it's exhausting. But then someone like you comes along, someone who's just themselves, no apology, no filter, no performance. And suddenly, the person across from you realizes, oh, I could just be myself here. I don't have to try so hard. And that realization is beautiful for about 5 minutes. And then it becomes terrifying. Because being yourself requires something most people aren't ready for. It requires actually knowing who you are. It requires being comfortable with your own mess. It requires believing that your real self is worthy of love, not just your performed self. When they saw you being yourself, maybe you were talking passionately about something you cared about. Maybe you laughed too loud. Maybe you admitted something vulnerable without shame. Maybe you just existed in your own skin with ease. They felt permission. Permission to drop their mask. Permission to stop performing. Permission to be imperfect and still be enough. And that permission, it was the most terrifying gift they've ever received. Because now they have to decide, do I accept this invitation into authenticity? Or do I run back to the safety of performance, where at least I know the script? They chose to run. Not because you weren't worth it, but because the work of becoming authentic felt too big. The vulnerability felt too risky. The possibility of being their real self. And being rejected felt worse than the reality of staying. Surface level and being accepted. This is what's really happening beneath all the surface level emotions and behaviors. Their silence isn't about you. Their pulling away wasn't rejection of who you are. It was them rejecting the call to become who they actually are. You became a mirror, and they didn't like what they saw, not because you reflected something ugly, but because you reflected the gap between who they are and who they're pretending to be. Your authenticity didn't just attract them. It challenged them. It confronted them. It invited them into a deeper level of existence than they've been living. And instead of rising to meet that invitation, they stepped back from it. They chose the comfort of familiar facades over the discomfort of genuine growth. Why is this the core truth? Because it explains everything. It explains why they seemed so into it and then suddenly pulled back. It explains why the very qualities that drew them in also pushed them away. It explains why they can't stop thinking about you, but also can't seem to reach out. Because reaching out would mean acknowledging that they're not ready to be who you needed them to be, not just for you, but for themselves. This explains their behavior on a Tuesday night when they're lying in bed thinking about you. They're not just missing you. They're missing the version of themselves they could have been if they'd had the courage to stay. They're grieving the possibility of who they might have become in your presence. Because authentic people call out authenticity in others, and they weren't ready to answer that call. What this means for you is profound. You didn't fail. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't show too much of yourself. In fact, you did everything right. You showed up as yourself, and that authenticity revealed who was ready to meet you there and who wasn't. This is actually the most efficient filtering system in the world. Would you rather spend years with someone who needs you to be less than yourself? Or would you rather find out early that they're not capable of matching your level of real? This is why you've been feeling that specific type of confusion, the kind where you keep replaying moments, thinking, but we had such a good connection. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. The connection was real. What happened is they looked at the price tag of that connection, emotional honesty, vulnerability, growth, and they decided they couldn't afford it right now. This is why your spirit has been restless. On some level, you knew the connection was genuine. You felt it, but their actions didn't match the energy, and that dissonance has been creating confusion. Now you can have clarity. The connection was real, and their inability to honor it says everything about where they are, nothing about what you offered. That restlessness you've been feeling, that's not anxiety. That's your spirit recognizing truth. You've been picking up on the fact that something significant happened in that moment of connection, and their response didn't match the magnitude of it. Your soul has been trying to reconcile the gap between what you experienced and how they behaved. Now you understand, there's no reconciliation needed. The experience was real. Their capacity to handle it wasn't developed yet. You've probably been cycling through thoughts like, if I had just, or maybe if I hadn't. Stop. This wasn't about your execution. This was about their readiness. You could have been more perfect, more careful, more strategic, and the outcome would have been the same. Because the issue wasn't your authenticity, it was their inability to meet it. Everything I've shared so far, it leads to this next part. And this is what most people miss when they're trying to understand why someone pulled away after genuine connection. Pause with me for just a second. I want to know, did what I just shared resonate with something you've been feeling but couldn't put into words? If it did, type "I felt this" in the comments. I read every single one, and honestly, seeing your confirmations reminds me why I do this. Sometimes we all need to know we're not alone in what we're experiencing. So if this spoke to you, let me know right now. I want to speak to some specific groups watching right now. For those who've been waiting and wondering if you imagined the connection, you didn't imagine it. What you felt was real. Their fear doesn't erase the reality of what happened between you. Hold on to that truth. For those who've been praying for this person, your prayers have been heard. What you're witnessing in this shift, their inability to forget you, their restlessness, their comparison of everyone else to you, that's evidence of movement. That's your prayers working in the spiritual realm before manifesting in the physical. Don't give up now. Something is being worked out in them that you can't see yet. For those who've been hurting and questioning their own worth, the pain has been refining something crucial in you. What's emerging is a version of you that knows, deeply knows, that your authentic self is not just acceptable, but magnetic. You're becoming someone who won't shrink for comfort, who won't perform for acceptance, who won't compromise their truth for security. That's power. And when you embody that fully, you'll attract people who are ready for that level of real, for those who are tired of waiting and wondering if you should just move on. Here's what I sense. This isn't about waiting for them. This is about becoming yourself so fully that whether they come back or not, you're already complete. Use this season. Let it refine you. Let it teach you to recognize authentic connection. Let it strengthen your commitment to being yourself. Because when you do that, one of two things happens. Either they grow enough to meet you there, or someone else who's already at that level enters your life. Either way, you win. Now that you understand what's happening, let me show you what to do with this information. Because understanding is just the first step. Now, I need to be completely honest with you because false hope doesn't serve anyone. I cannot tell you definitively that this ends with them coming back, ready and transformed. I can't promise you that they'll do the work necessary to become someone who can handle the level of authenticity you operate in. What I can tell you is this. Whatever is unfolding right now is moving both of you toward where you're meant to be. Sometimes that means they'll go through enough discomfort that they finally face themselves, do their inner work, and emerge as someone capable of genuine connection. Sometimes that means you'll grow so much through this process that by the time they're ready, you've already moved into a season where you no longer need them to choose you because you've fully chosen yourself. And sometimes it means they stay stuck, and you get the gift of clarity, knowing you gave them the opportunity to meet you in authenticity, and they chose comfort instead. All three of those outcomes move you forward. All three of those outcomes serve your growth. All three of those outcomes are leading you somewhere better than where you were before this happened. Because you're learning something invaluable. You're learning that you don't have to dim your light for someone to be comfortable. You're learning that genuine connection exists and what it feels like. You're learning that your authentic self is a gift, not a burden. The journey might look different than you expected. But if you stay aligned with your own growth, if you use this season to become more of who you are rather than less, it always leads somewhere beautiful. Some of you needed this confirmation more than you realized. Let me share something that's going to bring even more peace about why this is happening now, at this specific time in your life. Here's something I've noticed about the timing of these encounters. They usually happen when you're in a season of becoming more yourself. Think about it. When did they see your authenticity? It was probably during a period when you were caring less about performance and more about presence. Maybe you'd been through something that stripped away pretense. Maybe you'd been doing your own inner work. Maybe you just reached a point where you were tired of being anyone but yourself. That timing isn't coincidental. You attracted their attention because you were operating in your truth, and their response to your truth is giving you information you need for your next season. If they can't handle you at your most authentic, imagine what would have happened a year down the road when you're even more of yourself, even more free, even more unapologetic about taking up space. This encounter is actually protecting you. It's showing you early who has the capacity to match your evolution and who doesn't. It's saving you from investing years into someone who would eventually ask you to be smaller, quieter, more manageable. Your authenticity didn't scare away your person. It scared away someone who wasn't ready to be your person. And here's what's beautiful. Whether they become ready or not, you're already moving forward. You're already becoming more of who you're meant to be. This experience isn't delaying your growth, it's catalyzing it. So now the question becomes, what do you do while this unfolds? How do you move through this season with grace, wisdom, and peace? That's what we're walking through next. While they're going through their process, while they're comparing everyone to you, while they're feeling the weight of their own inauthenticity, while they're wrestling with fear and longing, your job is not to force it, rush it, or control it. Your job is to maintain your own peace. And I mean genuine peace, not the performance of peace while you're secretly spiraling. Here's what that looks like practically. You're going about your day, and suddenly they pop into your mind. Instead of immediately checking their social media or replaying that last conversation, you pause. You take a breath. You say, I release control over their process. I trust that whatever is unfolding is in both of our best interests. Then you return to what you were doing. When you see something that reminds you of them, a song, a place, a memory, instead of letting it spiral you into longing or analysis, you let it be what it is, a memory. You can acknowledge, yes, we had something real. Yes, it mattered. Yes, I wish it had unfolded differently, and then you continue with your day, not suppressing the feeling, but not drowning in it either. This isn't about being strategic to win them back. This is about genuinely becoming a person who doesn't need them to come back to be okay. And here's the paradox. When you reach that place of genuine peace, where you're truly okay whether they return or not, that's often when the shift completes. Not always, but often. Because people can feel desperation from miles away, and they can feel peace too. Peace is magnetic in a way desperation never is. Build daily rhythms that ground you, morning stillness where you reconnect with yourself, moments throughout the day where you check in with your own heart, evening practices where you release what you're trying to control. Create boundaries that protect your peace. Maybe that means not checking their social media, or taking a break from mutual friends' updates, or limiting conversations that keep you stuck in analysis mode. We're almost there. Let me tie this all together with what matters most, because there's one more thing you need to understand about this season. I know waiting is hard. I know you want answers now, resolution now, clarity now, but forced timing breaks what's being built. Here's what I've noticed about situations like yours. When someone has a genuine encounter with authentic connection and pulls away in fear, they have their own internal timeline for processing that. You can't rush them into readiness. You can't convince them to be brave. They have to get uncomfortable enough in their own inauthenticity that they choose growth themselves. Think about it like this. If they came back tomorrow, before they've wrestled with their own fears, before they've done their own work, before they've actually grown, what would be different? They'd still be the person who runs when things get real. They'd still be operating from fear instead of readiness. You'd be right back in this cycle, except deeper in and more hurt. Divine timing isn't about making you wait for the sake of waiting. It's about allowing both people to become who they need to be for what's next. Whether what's next is together or apart, the timing is preparing you. Right now, while they're processing what your authenticity revealed to them, you're growing in your commitment to staying authentic. While they're comparing everyone to you, you're learning to recognize your own worth. While they're wrestling with fear, you're developing peace. There's a rhythm to this that you can't see from where you're standing. Sometimes these things unfold quickly, a few weeks or months of internal work, and suddenly they're ready. Sometimes it takes longer, seasons where both people need to grow independently before they can come together healthily. But it's always purposeful. Your role isn't to speed it up. Your role is to stay aligned with your own growth while they work through theirs. Trust that if this is meant to come back together, the timing will be perfect. Not the timing you wanted, but the timing that serves the highest good of both people. For some of you, I sense the timing is closer than you think. There's a shift happening right now in the spiritual realm that's about to manifest. For others, there's still refinement happening in you, in them, in the situation itself. Either way, the timing is perfect for what needs to happen. Trust it even when you can't see it. Before we close, I have to ask you something. What's the one word that describes how you're feeling right now after everything we've covered? Hopeful, peaceful, overwhelmed, relieved, emotional, lighter? Just drop that one word in the comments. I'm genuinely curious, and I think it'll be powerful for everyone to see how this message is landing differently for each person. Your one word might be exactly what someone else needs to see. So go ahead, type it now before we finish. While this unfolds, there will be signs. Not the big, obvious, they texted me kind, but the subtle ones that show you something is shifting in the spiritual realm before it manifests in the physical. Let me tell you what to watch for. Sign 1, increased restlessness. If you're feeling more restless, more unsettled, like you can't quite get comfortable in your normal routines, that's often a sign that something is moving. Your spirit is picking up on shifts happening in the invisible realm. Don't dismiss this as anxiety. It might be spiritual awareness. Sign 2, unexpected peace. Conversely, if you suddenly feel this wave of peace about the situation, like you're no longer gripping it so tightly, that's a sign that you're aligning with divine timing. When you stop forcing and start flowing, things begin to move in the spiritual realm. Sign 3, synchronicities. Pay attention to patterns. Are you seeing their name everywhere? Hearing songs that remind you of them? Having conversations that eerily relate to your situation? These aren't coincidences. These are confirmations that something is in motion. Sign 4, they're appearing in your thoughts differently. Notice if the way you think about them shifts. If you move from desperate longing to curious wonder, from anxious attachment to peaceful release, from needing them to simply being open to them, that's a sign you're evolving, which often precedes external shifts. Sign 5, others mention them. If people who don't normally bring them up suddenly mention them, or if you're hearing updates about them through unexpected channels, That's often a sign that the energy around this situation is activating. When you notice these signs, don't overanalyze. Don't immediately assume this means they're coming back tomorrow. Just observe, acknowledge, and stay grounded. Signs are confirmations that something is in motion, not guarantees of specific outcomes. They're meant to encourage you to keep trusting, not to make you grip tighter. If you've stayed with me this long, there's something in your spirit that knows this message was specifically for you. Here's what to hold on to as we move toward closing. Here's what most people don't think about while they're waiting. What if this shift does lead to them coming back? What if they do the work and show up ready? Are you ready for that? Have you done your own work, or have you just been waiting for them to change? This season isn't just about them growing, it's about you growing into who you need to be for what's next. And what's next might include them or it might not. But either way, you need to be prepared. Ask yourself these questions. Have I healed from the hurt of them pulling away, or am I still carrying resentment? Have I worked on my own patterns in relationships, or am I hoping their return will fix everything? Have I learned to be complete on my own, or am I still defining my worth by whether they choose me? Have I developed clear boundaries, or would I accept anything just to have them back? Use this waiting season wisely. This is your time to build a life you love. With or without the minute, develop emotional resilience and self-awareness, create boundaries you'll actually maintain. Heal old wounds that would sabotage a healthy connection. Become so rooted in your own worth that their choice doesn't define you, because here's what I've learned. If they come back and you haven't done your work, you'll repeat the same patterns. If they come back and you've grown but settled into bitterness, you'll sabotage it. But if they come back and you've genuinely used this time to become more of yourself, or if they don't come back and you've still used this time well, you win either way. The healthiest posture is this: I'm doing my work regardless of what they do. I'm becoming myself whether they can handle it or not. I'm building a beautiful life whether they're in it or not. That's not giving up on them. That's refusing to give up on yourself while you wait. Final thoughts as we close. This is what I want you to remember above everything else. The healthiest posture as this unfolds is this: I'm open to restoration if it's right. I'm open to release if it's better. I trust that whatever unfolds is leading me to where I'm meant to be. This isn't giving up. This isn't resignation. This is surrendering control while maintaining hope. And there's tremendous power in that surrender. When you release the death grip on one specific outcome, you create space for something beautiful to emerge. Whatever that beautiful thing is. Maybe it's them, transformed and ready. Maybe it's closure that finally brings peace. Maybe it's someone new who's already at the level of authenticity you operate in. Maybe it's a season of just you, discovering depths of yourself you've never explored. All of these outcomes serve you if you stay aligned with growth. Here's how to distinguish between healthy unfolding and unhealthy patterns. As this situation progresses, watch for these signs that it's moving in a healthy direction. If they come back, they acknowledge what happened and take responsibility for their part. Communication becomes more honest. Not more performative. You feel more like yourself around them, not less. They're doing their own work, not just expecting you to wait. There's mutual growth, not one person carrying all the emotional labor, but if instead you're seeing breadcrumbing, just enough contact to keep you hoping, but never enough to commit. Blame shifting, making their fear your fault, hot and cold patterns, intense connection followed by withdrawal, on repeat demands that you prove yourself or change to accommodate their fear. Your peace being consistently disrupted without movement toward resolution. That's not divine restoration. That's manipulation, fear-based connection, or someone who's not ready. And beloved, you deserve better than that. Your authenticity deserves someone who can meet it without flinching, not someone who keeps running from it in cycles. Stay open to love. Stay open to connection. Stay open to possibility. But don't stay open to patterns that diminish you. There's a difference between waiting with peace and waiting while losing yourself. Make sure you know which one you're doing. So here's what we've covered today. This person fell in love with you unexpectedly when they saw you being completely yourself. Your authenticity wasn't just attractive, it was confronting. It held up a mirror to their own lack of authenticity, and that revelation scared them into silence. Right now, they're experiencing something profound. They can't forget you. They're comparing everyone to you, and they're feeling the discomfort of their own inauthenticity in a way they never have before. What this means is that something real happened between you. Their silence doesn't erase that reality, it confirms it. They pulled away because what you offered required them to grow, and they weren't ready for that requirement. And while this unfolds, your job is to maintain your peace. Trust the timing, watch for the signs, prepare your heart, and stay open to all outcomes. If you felt seen through this message, beloved, that's because this is your story. What I've described isn't generic relationship advice. It's what's actually unfolding in your specific situation. The connection you felt was real. The shift in them was real. The fear that made them pull away was real. And the current process of them wrestling with what your authenticity revealed, that's real too. Your spirit recognizing this message, the way certain parts made your chest tighten or your eyes water, the way specific scenarios felt eerily accurate, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. You're not imagining what happened between you. You're not making something out of nothing. Something significant occurred, and you're in the aftermath of that significance right now. I can't promise you that 3 months from now they'll be standing at your door, transformed and ready. I can't promise you that this ends with the reconciliation you're hoping for. What I can promise you is this: something is shifting, in them, in you, in the situation itself. And whether that shift leads to them coming back different, or to you moving forward free, or to both of you finding peace in separate directions, it's leading you somewhere better than where you've been. Growth is happening. Real growth. The kind that changes people from the inside out. In them, they're learning that authenticity isn't something to fear. It's something to aspire to. In you, you're learning that your real self is not just acceptable, but magnetic, and the truth is going to change how you show up in every relationship going forward. None of this is wasted. Not the connection, not the pain, not the waiting, not the confusion. All of it is refining you into someone who knows their worth so deeply that they'll never settle for surface-level connection again. If this message truly touched your soul today, if it gave you hope when you desperately needed it, if it helped you see your situation with new eyes and you want to support this work continuing, Super Thanks is a beautiful way to do that. Every contribution helps me dedicate time to creating these deep, meaningful messages instead of quick content that doesn't really serve your heart. But please, only if it genuinely blessed you and you feel called to give. Your presence here, your attention, your open heart. That's already a gift to me. For everyone watching, I speak this over you right now. May you have peace in the waiting. May you have clarity when confusion tries to creep back in. May you trust the process even when you can't see the outcome. May you grow through this season, not just endure it. And may you discover that whether this person is part of your future or not, you are being led somewhere beautiful. Your story isn't over. Some of the best chapters are still being written. The version of you that's emerging from this experience is stronger, wiser, more rooted in your own worth than the version that entered it. May you never again dim your light for someone else's comfort. May you attract people who celebrate your authenticity instead of fearing it. And may you know deep in your bones that being yourself is not just enough, it's everything. If this message resonated with your spirit, subscribe so we can continue this journey together. I'm here creating content to help you navigate these real, messy, beautiful situations with wisdom, hope, and spiritual insight. And listen, I have to know, did this message find you at exactly the right time? Like, was this divine timing? Because sometimes these messages find people precisely when they need them most. If this feels like it was meant for you today, if the timing of you finding this video feels significant, comment right on time, so I can see how many of you this reached in your perfect moment. Seriously, I love seeing how these messages land exactly when they're supposed to. I'll see you in the next one, beloved. Until then, keep your peace. Trust the timing. Stay open to what's unfolding. And remember, you are worthy of a love that doesn't make you question your worth. You are worthy of someone who sees your authenticity and moves toward it, not away from it. Be gentle with yourself through this process. The shift is happening in them, in you, in the situation. You might not see it all yet, but it's in motion. And you're going to be more than okay. You're going to be transformed. You're going to emerge from this season, knowing yourself in a way you never have before. That's a gift, whether it feels like it right now or not. Until next time, stay true to yourself. That authenticity that scared them, it's your superpower. Never apologize for it again.